The first thing she did was complain about the coffee at the airport. No hug, no "I missed you," just a casual remark about them running out of oat milk. Can you believe that? She dropped her suitcase by the door as if it were my responsibility to carry it upstairs. Her sunglasses stayed on, her tan looked artificial, and though her smile was genuine, it wasn't for me. I stood there, holding the envelope. She walked past me, already scrolling through her phone, kicking off her shoes like the week she spent with her ex was nothing more than a quirky detour. "Don't start," she said flatly, not even glancing at me, as if I were an ignored notification. That's when I handed her the envelope. A simple white envelope, no theatrics, just closure. She blanked. "What's this?" she asked. I didn't respond. She opened it and read the top line. Pause. Divorce. The word escaped her lips like it belonged to a language she didn't speak. I finally spoke, calm and quiet, already detached, already done. She laughed, actually laughed. "You're being ridiculous." I didn't flinch, didn't blink. She flipped through the papers, her smirk fading with every page. Assets divided, the car in my name. Her lavish trip expenses traced, documented, refunded from our joint account. And then came the pièce de résistance, a printout of her texts with Caton, time-stamped, geotagged, screenshot, and notarized. Her face went pale, panic set in. But she didn't cry, not immediately. She just stood there, flipping through the pages like they were lines from a script she hadn't rehearsed for. Page after page of cold legal reality, each bearing my signature. Her betrayal laid bare in bulletproof detail. Still, she tried to spin it. "You're really doing this over some old messages? You're blowing up our life over nothing." I nearly laughed. Nothing? 6 years. I gave her everything, my time, my energy, my peace of mind, and she called a secret week-long getaway with her ex nothing? She stormed into the kitchen, pacing like a lawyer crafting a defense. "We didn't even sleep together." Her voice was sharp, confident, until I tapped my phone and played the audio. Crystal clear. Her breathless whisper, "I forgot how good you were." That was the moment her entire facade crumbled. Her hands trembled. She reached for a chair and collapsed into it like her legs had given out. "You bugged me?" she croaked. "No," I replied, placing the private investigator's folder on the table. "I trusted you. He didn't." That stung. I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't just ashamed. I think for the first time she was scared, not of me, but of the consequences. Raina always thought she could talk her way out of anything. But now every lie was labeled, every misstep documented. There was nothing left to explain. "Aren't you even going to talk to me?" she demanded. "Did you just plan a takedown while I was gone?" That made me snap. "No, Raina, I planned a future. You burned it down. I just handed you the ashes." She shot up, knocking the chair over. "You're weak," she hissed. "You always were." But her words bounced off me. They had no weight anymore. Because standing there, watching her unravel, I realized something. She wasn't the storm. She was the wreckage. And I'd already walked away. Sometimes you need someone with fire. I nodded slowly, understanding why she returned to a man who had once dumped her in college and now peddled crypto courses on Instagram. Her silence was overwhelming. That's when I walked to the front door, opened it, and gestured toward her suitcase. "You should go before this gets worse for both of us." She didn't move, just stared at me as if I were unrecognizable. Maybe I was. Perhaps the version of me who excused her behavior, who craved connection, who swallowed her lies, that version died the moment she boarded that flight. And maybe what she regretted wasn't the affair, but the fact that I'd finally stopped being the person she could walk all over. She didn't leave that night. She stayed seated at the kitchen table, pretending the envelope in her lap wasn't a ticking bomb. She glanced around the house as though it had transformed into something foreign while she was gone. Maybe it had, emotionally at least. I hadn't raised my voice or lashed out. That's what made it worse. I wasn't the man she remembered. I wasn't pleading or falling apart. I was done, and I think that scared her more than anything else. Finally, around midnight, she spoke. "So, what now?" Her voice cracked slightly, as though she still couldn't believe I meant it. "You want me to just leave? That's it?" I didn't even turn to look at her. I sat on the couch, flipping through channels without watching anything, just needing background noise to drown her out. "Raina," I said calmly, "you already left." "All I'm doing is catching up." That's when she started crying, softly at first, then harder when she realized I wasn't rushing to comfort her like I used to. She said things I'd heard before. "We can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I made a mistake." The usual lines. But the worst part wasn't her words. It was that she still thought I was foolish enough to believe them. I got up to grab a drink. As I passed, I caught her reflection in the microwave door. Mascara running, lips trembling. For the first time in years, I saw shame in her eyes. But not the kind that inspires change, the desperate kind. "Dean," she whispered, "you don't have to do this. We can figure it out. I'll cut him off, I swear." I laughed, a quiet, bitter laugh. "You already figured it out when you packed for that trip." "You just didn't think I would." She followed me into the hallway, barefoot, pleading now. "Don't throw this away. Don't throw me away." I turned to her, exhausted. "You threw me away the second you bought that second ticket, Raina." She broke then, collapsing onto the stairs and burying her face in her hands, sobbing like a character in a movie who finally realizes the hero no longer loves her. And the sad truth was, a small part of me still felt sorry for her. But I didn't stop walking. I didn't kneel beside her. I went upstairs, shut the door, and locked it. That night, I lay in bed alone while she stayed downstairs on the couch, crying herself into silence. I thought freedom would feel different. Instead, I felt hollow, as if an invisible force had sucked all warmth from my chest, leaving only a cold void behind. But that emptiness was necessary, because the next day I planned to say something that would shatter the fragile hope she still clung to. Morning arrived, but it wasn't the quiet kind. The coffee maker hissed noisily, and the clock ticked like a relentless countdown. I came downstairs, already dressed, steeling myself for what lay ahead. She was there on the couch where she'd cried herself to sleep, wrapped in a blanket I'd given her 2 Christmases ago. I wondered if she even remembered, or if those memories had been replaced by images of beaches and hotel rooms meant for someone else. Raina looked up at me with swollen eyes, trying to gauge my expression. She didn't ask how I'd slept. Instead, she blurted out, "Can we talk before you make things worse?" I didn't respond. Instead, I walked over to the fridge, poured myself some orange juice, and sat down at the dining table. Beside my glass, I placed a small box. Her gaze locked onto it immediately. Slowly, cautiously, she stood and crossed the room, her movements deliberate, as though approaching something dangerous. "What's that?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "My goodbye," I replied without looking at her. She sank into the chair across from me, still clutching the blanket around her shoulders as if it could shield her from what was coming. "Dan, I messed up. A big one. But don't act like you're blameless here. You've been distant for months." That was her defense, my emotional withdrawal excusing her betrayal. As if my silence gave her permission to resurrect old flames and book matching plane tickets. "I was distant," I said slowly, meeting her eyes now, "because I watched the woman I loved transform into someone unrecognizable." Her face crumpled. For once, her usual evasive glances were gone. Her eyes simply fell. "I thought he could give me back something I'd lost," she murmured, almost to herself. "But it wasn't real. None of it felt right." I slid the box toward her. She hesitated, then opened it, expecting perhaps a ring or some sentimental keepsake meant to remind her of happier times. But it wasn't that. Inside was her old phone, the one she'd discarded months ago, claiming it was too slow. Except it wasn't dead. It still held everything. Backups of messages, videos, photos, all the secrets she thought were buried. She stared at it in disbelief. "You went through this?" "No," I corrected her. "I let your lies lead me straight to the truth. I didn't have to break anything. You left the door wide open." Her hand trembled as she reached for the glass of water beside her, nearly dropping it. "What do you want from me, Dan? Do you want me to grovel? Disappear?" I met her gaze steadily. "I wanted the woman I married back, but she's gone. What's left isn't worth fighting for anymore." Something inside her broke again. This time, tears streamed silently down her face, devoid of drama or performance. They were quiet, resigned. She stood abruptly, opened her mouth to speak, closed it again, and finally whispered, "I never thought you'd have the strength to walk away." A faint smile touched my lips. "Neither did I, but you showed me how." That morning she packed again, but slower this time. I didn't offer to help. I didn't ask where she was going. The day she left, the air felt heavier than usual. Raina walked out with her life stuffed into bags, dragging them behind her like anchors. There was no triumphant glow on her face this time, no trace of satisfaction or closure, but somehow she didn't seem to realize that the hardest part hadn't even begun yet. Physically, she was gone, her belongings packed, her keys abandoned on the counter, and the door closing with a finality that echoed through the house like the last breath of something dying. Yet, despite her absence, her presence lingered everywhere. In the faint scent of perfume clinging to the hallway, in the half-empty shampoo bottle in the shower, in the way my name now sounded foreign when I said it aloud, stripped of its meaning as husband and reduced to just another label for a man who had stopped pleading. But her departure wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of unraveling what remained. I thought I'd feel relief, or maybe vindication, but instead there was nothing. Just an emptiness so profound it made me question whether I ever truly mattered to the person who shared my bed for 6 years. Standing in the kitchen, I stared at the coffee pot she used every morning and realized I didn't know how I liked my coffee. For years, I'd brewed it exactly the way she preferred, never stopping to consider my own taste. That same afternoon, the phone rang, not with her voice on the other end, but with someone else's, Caton, the ex, the man she once thought would take my place. His tone was hesitant, almost nervous, which struck me as ironic, coming from the guy who'd shamelessly inserted himself into our marriage. "Hey, Dean," he began awkwardly, "I think we should talk." My grip tightened on the phone. "What makes you think I have anything to say to you?" He paused before speaking, his words slicing through the silence like a blade. "She lied, to both of us." I froze. "Say that again." Caton sighed heavily, as if bracing himself for confession. "She told me you were already separated, that you filed first, that you cheated. I didn't find out the truth until later, after things fell apart at the hotel. I left early, man. I swear I didn't sleep with her." Part of me wanted to dismiss his explanation as self-serving lies meant to ease his guilt, but there was something raw in his voice, shame, confusion, regret, that made me pause. He went on to explain how Raina spun elaborate tales during their trip, claiming she had a plan neither of us could anticipate. Each word he spoke felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place, revealing a picture far darker than I'd imagined. It wasn't just betrayal, it was manipulation. She hadn't merely broken our vows, she had twisted them until they became unrecognizable, then fed them back to us as truths. When the call ended, I sat in stunned silence, trembling not from anger but from clarity. Finally, I understood her for what she was, a master illusionist who thrived on control and deceit. Her actions weren't random. They were calculated moves designed to keep us entangled in her web while maintaining plausible deniability. Later that evening, I ventured into the closet and retrieved a storage bin I'd avoided opening for years. Inside were dozens of letters from Raina, written during the early days of our relationship before we married. Notes filled with promises of forever, declarations of safety, and assurances of love. One by one I read them, each word clawing at the remnants of hope I still clung to. Even after everything, a small part of me desperately wanted to believe those words were real, that the woman who wrote them still existed somewhere beneath the layers of deception. But belief doesn't erase betrayal, it only postpones the pain. And I knew, deep down, that I wasn't done hurting yet. 3 days after she walked out, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was handwritten, with no return address, but the handwriting was unmistakably hers. I stared at the envelope for what felt like an eternity before finally opening it. It wasn't that I expected an apology, I knew better by then, but rather that I wasn't sure I had the strength to face another lie. Curiosity, though, is a relentless force. Against my better judgment, I unfolded the paper. What I read wasn't an apology. It was a carefully crafted narrative about miscommunication and emotional distance. She claimed she never intended to hurt me, only that she needed clarity. She wrote about how she wasn't sure if what we had was real anymore, and so she had to step away, to test whether it still was. Stepping away, as she called it, turned out to be code for disappearing with her ex-boyfriend. My stomach churned as I read through the lines. The letter ended with, "If you ever decide to forgive me, I'll be waiting. I still love you, even if I've done everything to make you doubt it." No signature, no way to respond, just those final words sinking into me like lead weights. I didn't know which stung more, the fact that she wrote them or that some part of me still wanted to believe them. That evening, I called Gabe, the friend who'd helped me piece together the truth about her lies. I hadn't told him everything yet, but I needed someone outside my head to talk to. He didn't sugarcoat anything. "Dean," he said firmly, "you don't owe her your healing. You owe yourself freedom. She made her choices. Stop carrying her consequences." As much as I wanted to agree, betrayal doesn't just wound your heart, it fractures your sense of self. I started questioning everything. Was I dull? Inadequate? Had I missed signs years ago and chosen to ignore them? Memories replayed in my mind like broken records. Moments when she smiled at me, held my hand, told me she felt lucky. Were they genuine? Or had I been living in a story that slowly rewrote itself without my noticing? The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You okay?" At first, I assumed it was her again, but something stopped me from deleting it outright. Instead, I replied, "Who is this?" Seconds later came the response, "It's Caton. Can we talk?" I didn't answer, but later that afternoon, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, it wasn't Raina or Caton standing there. It was Isla, Raina's younger sister. She looked uneasy, clutching a tote bag tightly, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid of being seen. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. After a beat of hesitation, I stepped aside to let her in. She perched on the edge of the couch, clearly uncomfortable. "Dean," she began, "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but I need to tell you something, and it can't wait." Her hands wouldn't stay still, twisting the strap of her bag nervously as if preparing for me to throw her out. I didn't interrupt. I just waited, my mind racing with possibilities, all of them bad. But her expression told me this wasn't about smoothing things over. This was something else entirely. The weight of her secret had become too much to bear, and she couldn't stay silent any longer. "I should have told you sooner," she began, her voice barely audible. "But Raina made me swear not to interfere. She said it would destroy everything." Those words, "destroy everything," sent an icy chill through me. Destroy what? What was left to ruin? Isla looked up at me, her eyes swollen and red, and finally spoke the truth. "This wasn't the first time, Dean. Caton wasn't the only one." It felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted. I gripped the edge of the coffee table just to keep myself steady. "What are you saying?" I asked slowly, though part of me already knew. "She's been doing this for years," Isla continued. "On her work trips, she'd meet men. Once, she even told me she loved the thrill of it, said it made her feel powerful." Her voice cracked on that last word, as if repeating it caused her physical pain. I wanted to scream, to shatter something, to wake up from this spiraling nightmare. But I didn't. I just sat there, frozen, my chest tight, my breath shallow. "She always said you were too good," Isla went on, as if that explained anything. "That you wouldn't leave no matter what. And now here we are because you did find out, and you're leaving. I thought you deserved the whole truth before she twists it into something else." I closed my eyes, trying to process it all, trying to comprehend how someone could live a double life right under my nose. All those times she came home exhausted, all those last-minute trips, all the emotional distance she blamed on me, it had all been part of a lie so deep I couldn't see where it ended. "She told Caton you abused her," Isla added softly. "She said she stayed with you out of fear, that you were controlling and cold." My heart didn't just break in that moment, it turned to ash. For weeks I had been questioning my worth, my masculinity, my ability to love, and all along she had been out there painting me as the villain of her story. I stood abruptly, overwhelmed by the heat rising in my face. "Why are you telling me this now?" I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. Isla looked up at me, guilt filling her eyes. "Because I watched her destroy you, and I stayed quiet. You were good to her, Dean, better than she ever deserved." "And because if I were in your place, I'd want someone to finally tell me the truth." I didn't know what to say. I didn't thank her. I didn't yell. I just stood there, my entire body trembling under the weight of what I had just learned. My marriage hadn't just been a betrayal. It had been a performance, a script written by someone who wanted to look like the victim while playing the villain all along. After Isla left, I sat alone for what felt like hours, staring at the empty space where my life used to be. It's hard to describe what it feels like to watch your reality unravel piece by piece, not from a single blow, but from years of hidden wounds finally surfacing. Each revelation cut deeper than the last, leaving behind a hollow shell of what once was. In the quiet aftermath of everything I thought I had, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. Rhea never reached out again. Not after Isla's visit, not after the papers were signed, not even after the truth came to light. Maybe she knew it was over. Maybe she didn't think anyone would ever call her bluff. Or perhaps, for once, she realized the damage was too deep to mend. A week later, I left that house behind. It wasn't spite that drove me. It was clarity. That home had become a shell filled with memories too heavy to carry. I found a smaller place closer to work, near a park where I used to jog before life became about merely surviving. On my first night in the new apartment, I slept through without waking up once. No nightmares, no crushing weight on my chest, just silence and peace. A few weeks passed, and I started talking to someone. Her name is Delilah. A mutual friend insisted I needed laughter back in my life. At the time, I wasn't looking for anything serious. I was still piecing myself together. But there was something about her. Gentle, honest, real. The kind of person who asks how your day went and genuinely listens to the answer. We took it slow at first. Coffee dates turned into long walks, which eventually led to deeper conversations. Somewhere along the way, I caught myself smiling. Not the forced smiles I'd worn while trying to hold things together, but genuine ones. Smiles born from feeling whole again, or at least beginning to. I won't pretend I'm completely healed. Betrayal like that doesn't disappear overnight. But I've come to understand that closure isn't about waiting for an apology or understanding why things fell apart. Closure is giving yourself permission to move forward, even if the answers remain elusive. As painful as it was, Raina walking away turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. It forced me to stop clinging to someone who only loved me when it suited them. Today, I'm no longer the man who waits by the door, hoping for scraps of affection. I walk through life with my head held high, embracing what's ahead instead of mourning what's lost. And for the first time in years, I see the person in the mirror and feel proud of him. Have you ever been in a situation where someone manipulated reality so skillfully that you began questioning your own instincts? Or maybe you discovered strength when everyone expected you to crumble. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on your journey. Share your thoughts, because every experience holds power, and sometimes sharing our stories helps us heal just a little more.